What's going on? Boys, talking about a few things today. I like these order development videos because the fact fewer people watch them means less pressure, and without an explicit stated purpose or topic, again, I can relax and talk about whatever's on my mind. And right now, what's on my mind is a deteriorating funk. A bad day is one thing when every day is a bad when every day is a bad day. But it's another thing entirely when you have a really bad day and then instead of getting better, it gets worse each day. And I think that comes down to two things. One, the enlightenment fallacy, and two, realizing not only are you alone, well and truly, utterly alone, but also the fact everyone is against you. When it comes down to it, not only are you trying to figure things out and survive alone with no support, but also, in fact, anyone you encounter is going to be opposing you actively, and violently, and ultimately effectively. We'll start with the knowledge one, because that's a realization that every year or so kicks me in the dick, and it feels fresh and worse each time. Why are you seeking truth? Why are you bothering to try to figure anything out? To try to, much less the reality we find ourselves in, out? Why are you scouring materials outside yourself and then searching inside yourself, scouring your soul for more information, anything that can get you closer to what is? Why? Well, for me, the answer is solace. I find when I know enough about something, even if things are going bad or are going to end bad for sure, as long as everything is happening as it should, according to information, according to what I've learned, even if I don't feel better, I feel secure. Because there is, at least, if nothing else, a logic to the way things are happening. Even if everything is hell, literally hell, there is at least an order to it. And I think what brings me a feeling of security in that is knowing if there are consistent rules to reality, even if they are almost impossible to learn, you can learn them, and then you can play the game effectively. Or you can use a consistent methodology to achieve consistent results. Ergo, even if you're losing somewhere out there, if only you learn enough and play well enough, there is a way to win. But one of the two Vietnam guys I spend some time with here and there, the one I aspire toward and not the one I'm actually like, brought something about knowledge and learning to my attention. One, there is no order, there's no winning, there's only loss. There is only loss. And all learning does is helps you understand that truth in every way imaginable. If you think learning is going to make you happy, you're wrong. All you've accomplished by learning is learning. You sought out knowledge, obscure knowledge, potent knowledge, and maybe you got it. But were you expecting to be happy? Were you expecting learning something to get you out of the one consistent aspect of this hell reality? Now, learning is still, in my opinion, worthwhile, but you are insane if you think learning anything is going to make you happy or help you get somewhere. It's not. Even if you use your Megamind encyclopedia library to scrape together a happy illusion, it's still going to be taken from you. And it's going to be taken from you by your own kind. And we already know we're in hell. We've known that for years now. But again, new wrinkles each time these hell revelations come up. You're still so stupid and vain and pathetic. You think anything you do is going to get you out of this. You can read the entire Western canon and still, at the end, have nothing to hold on to and nothing to protect yourself with. And nothing to protect, ultimately, except, I guess, your ego that still can't accept hell is hell. I'm dragging this out, but it's like one sentence in a book you read that makes you have to put the book down and sit on that sentence for 30 minutes. You really believed collecting ideas was going to change anything. Already knew that, but what a kick in the dick again. And then the second part of the funk. There might be third part or fourth part, who knows? We'll see when we get there. Second part for now. You're not just alone, you're opposed. And moving forward, just for reference to make things easier, we're going to call Vietnam Dude 1, who is my current boss, Slim Pickens. We're going to call the second Vietnam Dude Z. Watching the thumb person, who Z was about as much of a fan of as I was, shoot, disturbed me more than I thought it did. It's one thing to know if the shit hits the fan, you're going to die, and then try to accept that. It's another thing to watch how it's going to happen. Like the breathing equivalent of the femur breaker. Because without realizing why I was doing it at first, or even that I was doing it specifically, I started looking up solo conflict shit. Which there is, of course, almost nothing for, because all anyone does is stress how much more effective a fighting force is with just two people, even. Two people are so much more than one person. It's depressing. And I think this is in part because most sources are operating under the assumption you and your people want to survive. And I think it's so depressing because, again, Jesus Christ, I was thinking about surviving. I don't know, well, I do know it's possible for some people, sometimes, somehow, to kick that instinct, but I haven't figured it out. And it's not just that instinct, that one live instinct, even if you are consciously thinking otherwise, carries so many other emotions that are going to affect you moment to moment anyway. Anyway, there is a channel I like watching called Lackluster that every day details how evil the United States law enforcement departments and justice system in general are. And as much as I appreciate that channel for truth and loathe it for pumping cortisol into me and putting me in fight or flight, life or death every time I watch it, thinking about not only what's happened, but what could happen at any moment, anywhere, with your having no ability to not even escape these tax-funded criminals. One of the few things that makes me happy is reading those comment sections and realizing, at least in this instance, you are not utterly alone. In the abstract, you're just mostly alone, and 100% alone in person. One of the reasons I despise American conservatives more than I despise just about anybody else is the fact they claim to be standing up for justice and standing against tyranny, but they back up cops always. Always. And not just back them up as a matter of course, but back them up with gusto. With that smarmy, pale, pasty arrogance. They're hypocrites. They're never going to care about truth, despite claiming to be the only ones who care about truth. And not only are they never going to be on your side, but also they're going to do everything in their power with that smarmy arrogance, with zest, to harm you. They hate you. They hate the truth more than anybody else. Don't get me wrong, everyone in this nation is evil, but if they really stood for truth, or justice, or freedom, they would have done something a long time ago. Much less hold these shitty, truth-ignoring views with zest. Pasty zest. I think one of the reasons those lackluster comment sections are so heartening is the fact people are in alignment. All sorts of different people are in alignment. And everyone there has a story. Because you don't get to this point without having something have happened. It's one thing not to trust authorities in the abstract, which is where I was a long time ago. It's another thing to know them, and to know other people know them. Your story wasn't a fluke or an exception. That's the rule. What happened to you happens to so many other people every day, and we're doing a lot of not only but also's. Not only do people not care at large, but also the people, the very people who should be opposing this sort of tyranny from savages, from low IQ, dumb, non-human savages, are the people who are going to be supporting them with the most savageness. You can show them these pasty, non-lifting, non-sunlight getting, non-grass touching, fat, quotes, people, as many instances of reality as you want, and all they're going to do is ignore it and probably insult you if they can, get the drool out of their mouths enough to get that far. You're not just you're not just fighting when shit goes down, and it's going to, and I hope it happens in our lifetimes and not your children's. You're not just going to be fighting a battalion of thumbheads. You're going to be fighting their hordes of gub, gross beard having, ball cap wearing lackeys. And there are going to be a lot of them. Or another way to look at it, if the world were just at all, you would find many sympathetic shoulders to lean on, and you would be a sympathetic shoulder for others to lean on. You're not going to find that. There are no sympathetic shoulders. Now, you might find sympathetic ears, but what good does that do you? That's one of the reasons I don't even like juries. I mean, I think a good way to look at America, or rather, the average American citizen, is to view every normal person in this nation, every average person in this nation, as a participant in that in the trash can dumpster shooting. You remember that? In one of those dumb fuck southern states, one of which I grew up in, just a bunch of really fat, shirtless dudes arguing about a trash can and then shooting each other. Do you remember that? That's a good way to look at this population. Fat, shirtless people arguing about trash and killing each other. They hate you for existing. They want you dead. The only reason you aren't is because there might be consequences right now, while the illusion of a system is intact. The moment that's gone, you're done. And they'll enjoy getting rid of you. That's your neighbors. That's everybody. It puts such a pit in your stomach, because if this world were in any way decent or sensible, that would be a comedy or psychological horror or some shit. But no, that's your life. That's what you're living in, and probably what you're gonna die in. sooner or later. It makes me sick because it's so far from what things could be. And it's farther from what things not just should be on an idealistic or optimistic view, but just realistically. It takes so much concentrated and continual malice from so many people, always, at all times, to get to where we are right now. If everyone just stopped giving a fuck, things would get better. We're here because of many dedicated people's hard work. Every day. And what do you do in these trying times, realizing the position you've found yourself in, other than try to learn something, maybe, to fix it, or to get out of it? Oh shit, wait. Oh no. Oh no, you poor baby. You forgot about the first part. Learning doesn't get you anywhere. Learning doesn't help. It's like the devil from the Bible. He's that devil. You must have gotten amnesia. You forgot that he's him. Now, I will say a couple maybe brighter things. If all learning does is make you more aware of how miserable you are and miserable you should be, then the fact you are miserable means you are learning things. And I still believe spiritually there are things, goals, whatever, to aspire toward. Worship. And I think everyone's worship is different, the same way everyone's righteous is different. And even though we are in hell, worship and righteousness are still worth seeing through, because how you feel doesn't matter. They're things that need to happen, no matter what. Why? I don't know, but if you don't do them, you are acutely aware they aren't being done. So you can and should still worship, however you worship. And two, frankly, I think a solo doctrine can be developed. And maybe that's just clinging to the idea reality is a problem that can be solved, but I think there can be an attempt. I think there's room for a realistic attempt. If you can manage abstractly and internally to get over the whole dying thing, which you aren't, but maybe you can put it aside long enough to come up with something. I am sure there is something isolated, totally disconnected individuals can accomplish in a shit hits the fan scenario. And I sometimes fantasize about this, developing or compiling and then sharing this solo doctrine or solus civis as something like a last-ditch set of protocols and information and outlooks and some... God, I said... It's weird. Philosophy is a word you need, but I hate saying it, but you need it. Loose philosophy that a lone civilian can whip out during a very bad time and still get something done to help people. That's the other thing I wanted to mention I forgot about. One of our European compadres asked about armaments in limited, restricted countries, and I didn't have an answer because as Americans do, as Americans should, in an ideal world, frankly, we wouldn't be thinking about any of you, other than maybe South America, because they're cool. I didn't have an answer, because that's a fucked up scenario, but I found a video I'm not going to link because you have to. YouTube is really weird about links. Most of the channel issues I've run into have come from links. Anyway, in YouTube, type in ZNA armor $30, and it's a video that will teach you how to make like pistol caliber and buckshot resistant body armor from homemade materials. And you can look up other videos that have tried making this and testing this armor, and it works. It's pretty consistent. And as far as I know, I don't imagine any of these materials would be restricted. So maybe that's something to look into. I'm gonna look into it. It's $30 for level 2 armor. It's pretty cool. And I've been listening to Patrice again recently, so I don't feel as bad about tangenting about daydreams for 6 hours. Actually, we'll keep it a little bit looser so we don't get too bogged down, but solace in armed religious movements, which sounds really bad when you put it into words and then say it, but it's more this dream of believing in something that matters and defending something that matters with people who matter. And I'm of the mind spiritualism and introspection and all that are the things that matter. Because another thing that was pointed out to me recently that I didn't know, dark matter. There is no evidence for it other than it should be there. So because it should be there, it must be there, even though there is zero evidence for it other than the fact that it should be there. I like science a whole lot. I don't like scientific dogma because I hear silly shit like that. And we're always wrong about everything, and we should be, because being wrong leads us into learning things and maybe getting a little bit closer to being correct one day, even though it doesn't mean anything because we're in hell. But I'm losing steam, but these are order development videos initially intended for developing an order. So it does tie in, and some things to think about. One, figuring out what you worship, why you worship it, and how you're going to worship. Two, what you can do realistically and effectively when hell decides to drop its guys. And three, still, how to accept death. I've been reading a lot about kamikazes and other people whom I don't think I should reference verbally because of censors. But if some people can accept death under the correct circumstances, how? And we'll cut it here, but another time I really want to talk about the Fairy Queen, because part of learning for no reason, one of the benefits, is learning how... Oh, the Fairy Queen is so silly. How nonsense everything is. The Fairy Queen is one of the most important texts in the Western canon, we wouldn't have Shakespeare without Edmund Spenser and the Fairy Queen. And the Fairy Queen is one gigantic, neurodivergently well written meme after meme after meme. We're going to have to talk about it at some point because this is one of the most important texts ever written in the English language, if not the most important text written in the English language. And it's just silly. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. I'm enjoying making these longer, bullshittier vlog type videos. So I think as long as we keep the MBTI videos on track and do some standard title videos, that format every so often, I'm enjoying making these, and I'll figure out how to do these right. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes, and comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. I don't know what to ask this time. How do you worship? What do you worship? How do you worship? And I mean those two questions. Normally I don't mean the questions in the comments part, because I don't give a shit. These I am interested in. Thanks again for watching the video, really. We have a lot of fun on this channel. So much fun, in fact, you can... Jesus. You can put it in a hollowed out tree stump and leave it there for someone else to find, because that's a lot of fun. And that's how much fun we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.